Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. We're now in session. If you would, please rise for prayer and live our faith.
Lord, first of all, we're happy for the rain. We thank you for it, and we're appreciative. And we ask that you protect folks on the road and help the people of this county, Lord, to look to you. We often don't until it's our last resort. Help us to look to you first. And in all the things that we do, we're grateful to you for all the many blessings you give us. We're thankful also to be getting back to normal, and we thank you for that and all your many blessings. In the name of our Lord Jesus, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. I want to remind everyone, if you would, please turn your phones off or to at least vibrate so that it doesn't disturb the proceedings. The first thing we do in every commissioner's court meeting is receive public input. This is an opportunity for people to address the court. We're not allowed to give you output back, but we are allowed to receive your input at that time. We ask that you, when you go to the podium, identify yourself. Let us know where you live. If you live in the county, if you don't live in the county, I'm sorry. That's lost. But, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. If there are more than one of you here speaking on a topic, you may accumulate your minutes that way. With that, I'm going to add this. The only restriction we have other than the time limit is if it is an item that is on the agenda, we ask that you wait until that agenda item is called. Otherwise, if it's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to address it. I know we have to keep here, so with that, I'll invite you to the podium. Okay, sorry.
Excuse me, we're
on YouTube.
Okay, thank you very much.
Everybody in Kirk County has the opportunity to see your presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Judge and Commissioners. Good morning to you all. For the record, my name is Mario Blado Jr. I'm Chief of Government and Public Affairs at the San Antonio Food Bank. And on behalf of Eric Cooper, our President and CEO, our board, our organization, thank you for the great leadership that you give to this great county of Kerr. Here with me today is Tabitha Garza, who also works with me in government relations. But the reason we're here this morning is to let you know that the country's safety net is still intact. We've been stretched thin because of the pandemic. A little bit over 200 food banks across the country, 21 in our great state of Texas. We've been working through this pandemic and it hasn't been easy. A lot of resources, community folks, local government, and really federal, state, and local government has come to our aid, and that aid has helped us help communities like Kerrville and like Kerr County. We couldn't do what we do without great partners. I can tell you, before the pandemic hit, we were assisting about 58,000 individuals. We are now assisting about 90. It went up to 120, but it's now down to 90. Great individuals and organizations like Light on the Hill. And here is Beth Palmer to just touch on a little bit of her work to help us help the community.
Hi, good morning. As Mario said, my name is Beth Palmer. I'm the Outreach Director at Kerrville First United Methodist Church and Light on the Hill at Mount Wesley, where we host weekly drive-through food pantries, and also we partner with the San Antonio Food Bank to host monthly Kirk County mega distributions. We are so blessed by the San Antonio Food Bank. We could not do what we do without them and without all the wonderful folks in our community who volunteer their time to make that happen. Since March of 2020, since the pandemic hit, we have shared over 860,000 pounds of food with over 12,000 families in our community, which if you look at the numbers in the household, that's over 32,000 people. So I just wanted to say thank you, and especially to the San Antonio Food Bank for their partnership.
Well, we want to thank you for what you do. We really appreciate your service to the community.
Thank you, Judge.
I drove up there and watched what you were doing at Mount Wesley during the freeze. And that was impressive, the cooperation that you guys did, so thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda. see you out there. You got a seat right over here on this wall. And this is the time for commissioner comments. We'll start with precinct 1.
Be careful when you burn. It's raining, but be careful. Keep an eye on it. Don't leave it. Make sure it's out when you're done.
Precinct 2. 3.
Mountain Home Volunteer Fire Department had a great turnout over the weekend. I would say between 800 and 1,000 people probably went through there. Well, I know they cooked 800 steaks. And so it's a great turnout for a great cause. And again, it's good to see, in your prayer, people getting back to normal.
Very good. So with that, we'll move on to the consideration agenda. Item 1.1, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the update, facility use, and other matters related to COVID-19, development during, including hospitalization numbers and capacity. Beth Thomas.
Morning, Judge. Morning, Commissioners. Hope y'all had a great weekend. Thank you for the rain. I know we're going to get a bunch more over the next couple of days, so that'll be a pretty good deal. For the COVID-19, as far as our vaccine data for Kerr County, number of vaccines administered at this point is 47,697. People who have been vaccinated with one dose, just a little over 26,000. People fully vaccinated are at 22,907. Vaccinations by age, ages 12 to 15 have been 625, and these are people that are fully vaccinated now. 16 to 49 is 7,024, 50 to 64 is 5,747, 65 to 79 is 6,998, 80 and up is 2,508. Just for percentages, 12 and up, people who have received one dose, 56.56%, 12 and up, fully vaccinated is 49.7% of the county population. 65 and up, 71.16%, and 65 and up, fully vaccinated is 64.36%, fully vaccinated.
Question, when you say they're fully vaccinated and the one vaccine, the ones that have one vaccine, is that because they're waiting to get the second, or they've chosen not to get the second? Or
One vaccine could be the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's a combination.
Yeah. So that number doesn't tell you a lot.
To be honest with you, the numbers don't tell you a whole lot anyway. From the DSHS dashboard, the active cases, and this was updated as of yesterday, was 204. Recovered patients, 6,072, and deceased is 125. As of yesterday, Peterson's update for what they have 13 people in the hospital as of yesterday, 4 are in ICU. Of those 4, 2 are on ventilators, 1 is on a BiPAP and 1 cannula, and 2 have been fully vaccinated. The RMOC, which is the Regional Medical Operations Center, is run out of San Antonio. That number continues to drop, just like our numbers continue to drop. We're at 503, or 8.1% of the hospital occupancy for the region. That's good. I like to see that number get lower and lower and lower.
Did you say, Doug, that 2 of the people in ICU are fully vaccinated?
Not in ICU, but 2, I'm sorry,
2 that are hospitalized?
2 that are fully vaccinated are in the hospital, yes, sir. I don't know if they're in ICU or not.
Well, just from a helicopter view, picture, how would you describe where we are compared to where we were, say, last month?
We dropped like a rock, and that's good. That's good. We were up at about 46 hospitalizations, and I don't remember what the total number of ICUs were, but we had 46 people in the hospital at one time, which is 1/3 of our hospital capacity.
Well, I think what's important for the public, though, is that the situation is getting better for the time being.
Yes, sir, for the time being.
Anything else to that? We appreciate all you're doing, Doug.
Thank you, sir.
Good work.
I'm going to hang out here because I got the next 2 as well.
Okay. 1.2. Okay. 2, consider discussing and take appropriate action to approve documents related to the hazardous mitigation assistance grant and allow the county judge to sign the same. Documents include, but are not limited to, grant terms and conditions, resolution for funding commitment, resolution for authorization to apply, certification regarding lobbying and maintenance agreement. This is a hazardous mitigation grant that we're applying for.
Yes, sir. Hazard mitigation grants through FEMA based on Winter Storm Uri, all that damage from Winter Storm Uri. FEMA puts out there 15%, I believe, is of the total amount of damage. They allocate that money, 15% of the total damages to mitigation projects, and we're going to apply for some of those. And that's what those documents are for.
What might the mitigate, I'm sorry. What might the mitigation do? What are we talking about there?
Let me go ahead and call 1.3 at the same time.
Okay.
It's easy for them to discuss. And that's to consider discussing and take appropriate action to use hazardous mitigation assistance grant funds to purchase on-demand generators for the volunteer fire departments.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, it's actually, we're looking at 2 projects. One of them is on-demand generators for the volunteer fire departments at Carfa. We're looking at 48 kW generators, propane fuel, with manual activation switches, not automatic. We prefer the manual. We're looking at generators for, and then I'd like to see 4 10 kW generators for the 4 radio towers that we have here in the county to keep them running. The generators for the volunteer fire departments, I'm looking in Carfa, Mountain Home, Divide, Hunt, Elm Pass, Center Point, Turtle Creek, and Castle Lake Ranch. Now, Castle Lake Ranch is part of Bandera County. They're not Kerr County, but they do have response capabilities for this county. We've got a contract with them, so I don't see any reason why we can't put an on-demand generator over there as well. Comfort has their own generator. Ingram has their own generator. Tierra Linda has their own generator. Castle Lake Ranch does not.
Well, it's a public understanding. You can't just require people in each of the volunteer fire departments to find out who needs the generators. And you're
Yes, sir.
recommending that we apply for a grant to fund those generators.
That's correct. I'm looking at 2 generators for Hunt, one for their main station, one for Felix Fisher out west.
What's the average cost?
About 15,000 for the, well, it just depends on who you go with, but 15,000 is about what I've seen for 50 kW with propane.
So we need a motion to approve the application process and authorization, and we need another motion to approve actually going for the demand generators for PUD. Is that both of them?
Yes, sir.
And that second for both of them? Let's take the authorization first. Any discussion about the applying for the grant or the authorization to apply for the grant?
I'm curious how long the process will take once it's applied for. Do you have any notions?
I have no idea, Commissioner. I know the deadline is November the 5th, so we're hopping on this pretty quick. There will be another funding source come out here after this one. So if we don't get it through this funding process for the November 4th, 5th deadline, I'd like to go on for the next funding source, which will be more FEMA money.
And by the way, this is being handled by GrantWorks. We're paying them to do this, so they're helping us with this. So is there any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. And 5-0. And as far as authorization to apply for these demand generators for VFDs, we have a motion to second for that. Is there any discussion about that?
Did you go, there's a second part besides the generators. Did you discuss that in there?
Well, there's 2 projects we're looking at. The one is the generators, but that's on the agenda. The other one is covered parking for road and bridge and for the sheriff's department to mitigate against hail damage. Every year, it seems like we're getting our patrol vehicles as well as probably some of the road and bridge that get all the windshields knocked out and all that kind of stuff. And it makes it difficult for us to respond if we don't have the vehicles. So I'm looking at covered parking for road and bridge as well as at the sheriff's office, probably R3 panel on slabs, something like that. It doesn't have to be elaborate.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Thanks, Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, it comes time to locate those that are covered parking. Especially when we're looking at some changes out there, we need to make sure that we're communications,
Yeah, I've been talking with Kelly and Charlie on that, so, and the sheriff as well, so we're really good at where we're going to be able to do all that.
Thanks, Doug.
Yes, sir.
We've got some time items, and when we have time, specific time items, we have to take those as soon as we can, those times, and come back to the other agenda items. So, item 1.4 is discuss and appropriate action to approve a resolution for the deed center to apply for the Texas Department of Agriculture grant, Meals on Wheels Services. We do this every year. Welcome back, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, and done enough before I had a chance to tell him thank you for helping us facilitate vaccinations for our homebound seniors. And we, with his help in the Texas Emergency Management Division, gave out over 200 vaccinations to our homebound seniors. And that was 2 sets of 2 shots. So we had a great full day full of vaccinations months ago. Anyway, I want to tell him thank you for that. Yes, we are doing again our grant application to the Texas Department of Agriculture for our Meals on Wheels program. Last year, or our year ended September 30th. So in the past year, with pandemic times, we still provided 67,968 meals to our homebound seniors, even through the pandemic. We never skipped a meal. We got everything. The ice storm, we kind of got we had to give out extra meals whenever we could get to their houses, but we were able to provide food for our seniors, homebound seniors, to the tune of over 67,000. And then we did drive-through meals for our seniors that couldn't come in the building because we weren't open. And we did our drive-through Friendship Cafe, and we gave out over 12,000 meals during the past year for that. So for a total of over 80,000 meals we provided for our seniors in our community. So the Texas Department of Agriculture grant just helps us. It's usually about 14 or 15,000 that we get from them that helps us offset the cost of providing those 80,000 meals.
And Brenda, if you would explain to the public so they understand the partnership that the county has with Deeder in order to be qualified for this program.
In order to qualify for the grant application, you have to have a resolution from your county government that and a donation, kind of an in-kind donation, and the county does $4,500 for us annually to help us apply for this grant. So with the county's $4,500 plus about the 14 or 15,000 that we get for the TDA, then we're able to provide almost $20,000 to help provide food for our homebound seniors.
I move for approval.
Got a motion and a second to approve the resolution for the Deeder Center to apply for the Texas Department of Agriculture grant for Meals on Wheels. Any discussion about this?
Do the program.
Excellent. Absolutely. We would be remiss if we did not do this. So, with that, let me ask those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we've got a 9:15 time item. I see Christine here. And when we skip over that, go to 9:15. Which 1.6 is discussion regarding Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and Veterans Day observances. We're split with the VCOs doing Memorial Day and supporting a group, this Rotary Club, who took the lead for Veterans Day. And that said, given the rise in the Delta variant, the position of the group is to postpone conducting the VA observance until 2022. And we've got a lot of people here. Jennifer, if you would, identify yourself and identify the representatives you have present with us.
So, good morning, Jennifer Sanchez, Kerr County Veteran Service Office. I have Mr. Jeff Harris, he's with the Rotary Club, and then Mr. Byron Warren, Mr. Gary Noller, and then Miss Vicki Marsh, who's my advisory council. So,
There's a lot of Marines out there.
there's a lot of Marines. So as you may recall, Marty and Mr. Harris had previously informed the court that our office, the Veteran Service Office, would continue to do Memorial Day. However, a group from the Rotary Club of Kerrville would lead for Veterans Day, and we would support them. So our request this year is that we hang up our Veterans Day sign to be displayed on the corner from November 1st to November 12th. And then I gave a printout. There's a lot of events going on for Veterans Day. So November 5th, it will be funded by the Rotary Club to have a Veterans Breakfast at the Veterans Center on Meadowview from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. That was the last minute addition. The Dietrich Center on Veterans Day, the Daughters of American Revolution is having a program, and then the Dietrich Center is going to provide lunch and a photo opportunity for any veterans that are attending. Mr. Allen Hill will be planning an event later that afternoon due to the Dietrich Center having something in the morning, and then pretty much all the schools are hosting something for Veterans Day. Centerpoint will be having a quote parade. That's where veterans will come, they'll introduce them, and then the students will kind of escort them in, and then they'll provide a lunch for them. Ingram is going to be buying box lunches for all our local recruiters. Kerrville, I haven't heard back from them, but they usually have a ceremony at their flagpole with their junior ROTC, and Hunt will also be having an assembly honoring the veterans and give them some refreshments. And then the Kerrville VA Medical Center is planning to have their annual car show on the following Saturday, which is the 13th. Of course, currently it's contingent due to the pandemic, and they're having a project going on, but that is their huge fundraiser for all our veterans who reside at the VA. And that is all I have. If you have any questions for me.
Well, I'd like to advise you.
Yes, sir.
This report has increased its veterans' rights by 100%. And I have the same veteran that on the court.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate all that you do for veterans in the community.
My thoughts on this is, you know, we've had, over the last few weeks, we had a gun show at the event center that had 1,900 people over the course of 2 days. We've had stock show fundraiser and wall game there, and had 450 in an inside building for 4 hours at a time. We're filling up our football stadiums. Mountain Home Fire Department, I just mentioned, had 800, 1,000 people come through. It seems important for an open air event that usually draws about 150 people or so, that we have something. And that seems safer than anything I just mentioned.
So I'm not sure if you want us to host an event. So what was previously discussed was, and Mr. Harris is here so he could speak on it, was that we would focus primarily on Memorial Day, and then the group from the Rotary Club would focus on Veterans Day, and then we would support them, meaning we'll get out the advertisement, we'll get everybody to know what's going on. So I'm not sure if you want us to do something for Veterans Day, but we were just basically going to support their organization with it. He can discuss more on it if you like, and then we can regroup and go from there.
Well, I know Mr. Harris is not that.
Yes, sir.
If you would like a brief synopsis on it, it was not the Rotary Club of Kerrville that was going to do a Veterans Day program. It was a group of citizens that just happened to be comprised of about 5 Rotarians that are also all veterans. Delta variant's kind of reared its ugly head again. Our veteran population is elderly. The majority of them are elderly in age. So do I, Your Honor, but we just did not feel it would be responsible, because I don't want to have an event where we're out there and we're doing something y'all won't do. So we decided as our group that was going to plan this and put this together that we would take the responsible route. Let's see what happens right now, and then we're going to do it in 2022.
Well, it's a voluntary event, nobody's required to be there.
Correct.
If they're worried about it, they can stay home.
Yes, sir. It's just, we took it as our private committee, so to say, Commissioner, that we didn't want to be responsible for having a gathering where somebody could get sick. We didn't want that responsibility.
Well, the truth of the matter is, every gathering we have, somebody gets sick from something.
Yes, sir.
Everybody's been gun shy about this. A lot of us over 65 have had it over. And so I agree with Commissioner Harris. You got an open air event, that's a minimal exposure or risk for anybody. anybody that feels like they are at risk doesn't have to be there.
Correct. It was
Now,
just
I'm not saying you should put on the event.
Right.
I'm saying here at the courthouse, we can have something, and there'd be no reason not to have it. We had one last year, everybody was scared to death last year.
Right.
Most people.
More so.
And we didn't know anything, we didn't know near as much about it then as we know about it now.
More speakers.
Well, Byron was on the committee with us, so.
Byron Warren, 2944 Dry Hollow, Kerrville, Commander, Military Order of the Purple Heart here in Kerrville. In the past, the Corps has been very fortunate to have two parades put on outside of your province, out of your direction, or out of any budget that you may have provided for that. I say that because the Military of the Purple Heart funded a majority of those two parades. We've always had a discussion, polite discussion, that why are veterans putting on a parade for veterans? It should be community, chamber of commerce, or county government or city government. To do a parade, it's not just jump up, let's go do a parade tomorrow. You have to get permits. You have street closures. You have police department, sheriff's department coordination. And you got to provide some expense called insurance and porta potties. There is expense to doing such a thing. What the committee was going to propose, and I think this is probably on the agenda for 2022, is do a shortened parade and end up in Louise the park, and not go down the streets and not end up at the county courthouse like the two previous parades have done. What is interesting, and the court may want to consider this, there's little or no funding from the county to do this for put on such a celebration, which is interesting. But it may not be necessary because the committee that we're trying to form have hooks, ties into people in the community who would donate money, and that would be the funding. Again, that just doesn't happen overnight. The planning for such a large event, this involves many companies, many people, many military organizations here in Kerrville. It should start planning around April and May. And that's when the COVID-19 basically reared its ugly head. And that decision was probably to discuss it further in the summer, and then the discussion turned out that we didn't want to be responsible for any illness. Now, our crystal ball wasn't clear enough to know that in September and November, through November, that the virus would disappear or become less of an issue. Our crystal ball wasn't that clear. But our decision was made basically back in August for the welfare of the community, welfare of the veterans population, and for those who may attend. Also, in light of planning, most of if we do parades, if we do celebrations, it should involve children. Traditionally, children benefit from parades and patriotic things. Well, dealing with the school, independent school district, and getting children turnout in the publication, that is the campaign that takes several months. And hopefully holding your arm behind your back and doing politics. But that's another issue of doing a bigger celebration for the community at large. And since children are not, a lot of the children, small children, are not eligible for vaccination, that was another consideration that we discussed in the meeting, the Veterans Day Parade or Veterans Day Celebration Committee. And that was another discussion point. So a lot of things went back and forth. But at the end of the day, I think for the safety of the community, safety of the veterans, safety of the children that may involve, that was our decision.
Well, those children are in school today altogether, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Gary.
Good morning, Gary Noller, 140 Ray Drive, Center Point. We have three of the members of the Veterans Advisory Committee here today. Bill Cantrell could not make it. But I take a little bit different view on the reasoning behind the Veteran Service Officers' involvement in Veterans Day activities. And that's because their primary reason we wanted to have a county service officer was so that they could help veterans who need to gain benefits, mainly through the Veterans Administration, but through other state, local agencies, and nonprofits. So that if the veteran service officer is involved in Veterans Day, and I don't know how many hours that takes, but let's just say it's a couple of weeks of full time to do something, depending on how much you're doing. And that's the opportunity cost. If that veteran service officer is working on Veterans Day, then they're not working on claims. So if you have people come to you saying, I don't understand why the veteran service officer can't get to my claim, well, one of the reasons may be is because they're trying to find golf carts to haul people up and down the street during some kind of Veterans Day parade. And I don't think they should be doing that. And so kind of what the advisory committee has done is made a compromise. We said, okay, we have two major veterans events every year, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Memorial Day is very solemn. Memorial Day and Veterans Day are not the same day. Veterans Day should be a little bit more celebratory, kind of a thanking and recognition of veterans. And so we pitched and got behind a veteran service officer this last Memorial Day. And so when we take a look, you have a sheet there that Jenna produced that shows that there's other people in the community who get involved in Veterans Day and want to show veterans respect. They may or may not do the same on Memorial Day. But what I'd certainly call to your attention is the opportunity cost that's going to be involved if your Veteran Service Office personnel are running events rather than filing claims, checking up on evidence, answering veterans' questions. So please keep that in mind as to what you really want, how much of that time you want expended for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a comment on that. We have a Veterans Service Committee that advises us. I think both of their reasons made a lot of sense. I mean, to plan any kind of event, whether it's something in the courthouse square or a parade, it takes months. And we have a month right now before Veterans Day. So we don't have time to do something. And I don't want to do something or vote to do something that's just thrown together. It needs to be an organized event. And I also agree with Noel. You know, it's a fine line, and I think they finally have a recommendation. The way they're doing it is that our veteran service officer work on Memorial Day, but they take a lot of time, and their main job is to assist veterans claims.
Yeah, point out that they're half staff.
Right, and they're short staff.
So she's not hired to be an events coordinator, obviously. The county could have participation in a donation, but that needs to be private, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a parade, but I like the idea of a parade. We lost our parade. We had one that was kind of building up some momentum. People knew it was going to happen, and we didn't have it. And so it doesn't have to be that elaborate. We'd like to see it become a real event. It's just as important as a lot of the other parades that we have. I'd love to see some. But that should be, I think, privately funded and organized. So, to Commissioner Ledson's point, having a committee to put it together would be important. But then you have to have somebody that calls on folks. Part of that committee would be calling on folks for donations and the county for contribution, which I'm not against. I'm for the county having participation. But also, we don't need the Veteran Services officer taking time off for that. So we've got a good idea going here. What to do with it is the question.
And I'm sorry, I didn't announce myself earlier. I'm Jeff Harris, 769 Oakland Hills Lane here in Kerrville. Colonel Marsh wanted me to mention one more thing, what our plan was. So we're going to start on Cully Drive. That's where we want to start our parade. Cully Drive, we can cross Thompson. There's only one road closure. There's alternate routes around it. And we want to wind up in Lewis Hayes Park. Like Byron said, children, I remember as a kid going to Veterans Day parades in Victoria, and it was amazing. And then they had events afterwards, but now events have changed. But we're talking about having food trucks down there, bounce houses for the kids, and all kind of different things. There's a lot of local vendors that we've already talked to that want to get behind it, but they were in the same position as we were. So just wanted to, that is our ultimate goal, is that's where we want to wind up and have a Veterans Day celebration in the park. So thank you.
That is a large undertaking, without a doubt. But I know there's a another group that saw this on the agenda that would be willing to have something much like last year, out front, an hour or so, and a Veterans Day celebration if we're not gonna do it, you know, if y'all choose not to do that. Didn't realize that going back to the parade, because like you, the parade is a big event,
It was building up toward it,
without doubt.
being big and
But it'd be nice to have something out here, and then there's another group that would be willing to step up and do that in the county.
Jenny, you have anything else?
May I be approved to have our banner up for the 2 weeks, the Veterans Day banner?
I don't think there's any question about that.
Okay.
We'll vote on that in just a second. I just want to say that COVID times are interesting times. And I know this required a lot of advanced planning, and decisions were made before we flattened out this latest surge. And we understand that. And we understand also that because of COVID, things have been somewhat decentralized. We don't get together like we used to. And honoring our veterans is something that is critically important for this community. And my personal observation is that I agree with Byron that somebody else needs to be organizing the parade for the vets, not the vets. And to look to the vets to do that, I think, is looking in the wrong direction. And this year is what it is. And Rotary has stepped up, and I commend Rotary for doing this. It sounds like to me you have a good event plan. And I think it's important that the community be behind that event, and that we be careful not to diffuse that event by competing events. If we're going to honor the veterans, we need to do it as a community. So I would encourage the entire community to get behind what Rotary's doing. And that's going to be on what day?
That'll be November the 5th.
November the 5th?
Yes, sir. Breakfast at the Veterans Center on Meadowview.
And then a parade to follow?
Not this year, no, sir.
No. Next year.
Yes, sir.
Next year will probably be.
And what I would like to recommend, and of course, as a good Methodist, we love committees. But I think maybe what we need to do is to put together a committee. Representatives from our advisory council, which I think you're very focused on what your mission is. And Gary, I agree with you completely as to what mission the Veterans Service Officer ought to be. But with community civic organizations and the county, and let's get together and let's get our act together for next year. We need to overcome the adversities that we have been dealt with because of COVID, come back together as a community, and we need to have something that we can all be proud of. We respect the difficulty that you had in making your decision this year, and I personally respect that. But at the same time, this is something that we don't need to lose sight of. We don't need to leave here today and forget what needs to be done. And so, and I know when I tell Byron and Colonel Marsh and Gary that we want to do something about this, you will remind me that I want something done about it. And we'll drag Jeff into it and Jenna, and hopefully we'll have Marty back to help brainstorm this. But this is something that we need to get back on track. And so on behalf of the court, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we approve putting up the banner, because that's the least that we can do. And with that, I'm going to put a rider on there that we form an ad hoc committee with our advisory council, civic groups, and representatives from the county to get together and plan something that is deserving of our veteran service and what they've done.
I'll second that motion.
Was there any discussion on that?
just that I really like the idea of making it more visible. The route we were taking before in the courthouse, it was, people would not even know what's happening, making it bigger, and everybody's seen it in the park. Great idea, great idea.
So, any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. We're behind you 100%. We're sorry we dropped the ball this year, but we're going to get our act together for next year.
Thank you very much.
And Christine, I'm still apologizing. I had a 9:30 event and standing in the back.
This is good.
Yeah. Item 1.8, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve the interlocal agreement with the Kerrville Independent School District regarding the Hill Country Youth Event Center as an evacuation center in case of emergency. Wade, we do this every year. This is routine.
Yes, sir. Just here to just say we'd like to enter into this interlocal agreement one more year. It is an integral part of our emergency response plan should there ever be a need to evacuate a campus or campuses we know that we have a place where we can take our students, where they will be safe, and that we can reunite them with their families in an orderly fashion.
Move for approval of the sign agreement.
We got a motion and a second to approve renewing our interlocal agreement with Kerrville Independent School District to use our Hill Country Youth Event Center as an evacuation center in case of emergency, which we are proud to provide for this community.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
I have a question about do the bus drivers go through a routine? What's the,
So
they load up on buses and go? Is that how the plan?
Yes, sir. What would happen would be buses would be taken to whatever campus was in need. We have a route in which the buses can actually drive into the back of what I would call the back, the barn, and unload the students kind of out of sight, out of the eye of press that might be there. Also just highly secure, and then bring them into the actual event center itself, and then we would bring the partition wall across and have the students on one side and then reunite with their parents on the other. And so it would just be a highly controlled environment. So answer to your question specifically, yes, our transportation director knows the drill. We review it at the beginning of every school year. We were actually out there at the beginning of this school year and just look it over. And so, and we have driven buses through there, and we know exactly how they would be staged and that they do fit.
It is a highly planned evacuation.
Well, I remember fire drills. That's all I have.
Yeah.
This is not a fire drill.
It's not a fire drill.
But the kids haven't gone through this like
No, sir.
fire drill. They would be rounded up and lined up.
Right, they would just be following instructions at that point.
And yelling, "I don't take the bus."
Yeah.
My mom picks me up.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, item 1.5. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept the donation of a desk from the Gordon Monroe family to the office of the 198th District Judge. And I see Alex Monroe in the back of the room. Welcome. Christine McIntyre.
Good morning. Let me get this off so you can hear
And
me.
for those of you at home that don't know who Christine McIntyre is, she is our district court coordinator.
Hello. I don't get out much. On behalf of the district judges, Judge Emerson is in Bandera today. He wasn't here to be able to thank you, but he wanted me to extend how grateful he is that y'all were graciously generous in donating this desk. It means a lot to him personally. He would respectfully like to accept the Monroe family's gracious and generous donation of Mr. Monroe's desk. That's all.
So move.
We've got a motion and a second to approve accepting Gordon Monroe's desk. For those of you that out in the public that did not know Gordon Monroe, he was quite a large figure, and was a tremendous personality. Former mayor of Kerrville, has been he and his family have been very active. We have Alex Monroe here today, who is with our sheriff's office. I believe you're a corporal, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And your uncle, Scott Monroe, was the district attorney for the 198. And if you go around town, you're going to see the Monroe name on lots of buildings and lots of improvements that they contribute to the county. And we appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Thank you.
Al, we kept you waiting too.
That's all right.
1.7, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to appoint a deputy constable pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code.
Basically, I'm here this morning formally requesting a deputy constable position to be in accordance with the Local Government Code, Chapter 86. Requires that I submit in writing a request for one, and I name that prospective deputy. Earlier in the budget cycle, Director Gibbons with Animal Services, who is also a deputy constable, requested that position, and I believe it was approved. And anyhow, deputy, or not deputy, but Animal Control Officer Uribe, Dominic Uribe, has been submitted by Director Givens as to be that deputy constable. And we're currently in the process of, I've completed a background check, and we're currently in the process of going through the motions on that. I have also submitted Director Givens' original letter justifying the position that y'all, I resubmitted it along with my letter. So I guess basically what we're doing is some housekeeping here, and I'm formally requesting that Dominic Uribe is the prospective deputy constable for that animal control position that's come available.
Move for approval.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve appointing Dominic Uribe as a deputy constable. And for those that, again, the public that don't understand, animal control are law enforcement officers also, and they're required to be official law enforcement officers. And we use Kyle Snyder's office, Constable Precinct 2, to hold those licenses.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we're doing here. This is just a housekeeping matter to make sure that our animal control is fully deputized.
Yes, sir.
Kyle, did you say that the background investigation is ongoing, or is it completed?
Basically, I have to go through TCOL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, for all this. And they require, even though Dominic has been a county employee for several years now, to become a certified peace officer, they have a process, and I have to go through a background check and everything. And that's complete.
Okay.
We're doing, I believe he has something this week yet to go yet. I've also been in talks with the sheriff here of using his field training officers to put Dominic through their field training officer program. It's a requirement by TCOL. He's been gracious enough to provide his officers. I believe we're waiting for clarification from Heather on some matters. I believe they've reached out to you, but you've been out.
Her expression tells me that.
I know.
That's
Why are you
news.
waiting a little longer?
You never answer your phone. No, you.
Now
I understand.
Even more.
Not anymore.
Get ready.
No, she's been out, and I understand. But we're going through the process here, and like I said, and Tracy over there, been a great resource. I've never hired anybody as a law enforcement, so Tracy over at the Sheriff's Department, she's been a great help. Everybody's been a great help in this process. And
But it's all very structured. Background checks are verified. There is training. And so when we deputize these people, they are authentic law enforcement officers.
Now, does he have to be bonded for this particular job?
yes, yes.
And that'll be new, going
Yes.
with the job.
Yes, been working on all that.
The only reason I asked the question, I thought maybe the motion should say pending the ongoing process or something.
That might be best, sir, because like I said, we're in the process, but he's got, I think, one or two more things, and then provided he completes the field training officer program.
I'm not have a motion that, subject to completion of all requirements.
Okay.
Yes, it's modification. Okay. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Let's try to get one more out of the way before we take our morning break. So item 1.9, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the 2022 Kerr County resolution in support of the grant application for the Indigent Defense Formula Grant Program offered by the Texas Indigent Defense Commission. And authorize the county judge to sign said resolution. Ms. Robles.
Yes, this is a program we've been a part of for many years. This is separate from the Public Defender's Office grant. The state allocates X amount of dollars per year to help subsidize counties' indigent defense expenditures, and we traditionally receive about $65,000 for this.
And we've been doing this for years, and we received this in the mail. There's a resolution that I need to sign and send back to them to get it. So I'm here to ask for your permission to do that.
Move for approval.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the indigent defense resolution. Any other discussion?
This, we have an entire justice center for this, and we have money that came with it. And does this in any way, is there any conflict, any problem with the funding from two different sources?
No, sir.
No.
For indigent defense?
No, and it's not two different sources, it's the same source.
But it's,
Historically, this was the only contribution we got from the state of Texas to provide indigent defense in Kirk County. We'd spend $750,000 and we'd get 60 in return. What we now have with the Public Defender's Office is a development grant where they're trying to build these regional public defender's offices. That was the $2.5 million grant, and then the 1.7 that we got for this year. It comes from the same source, but it's a different program. The formula grants, they have a way of computing the number of indigent cases that we've handled and what we pay. And it was the old way of doing business, and fortunately we get to take the old formula and we get to take the new development grants as well. So any other discussion? We've got a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous 5-0. Let's take a 10-minute break, come back at 10 o'clock sharp.
I think that it is. Somebody got to buy it.
Put it next to coming up.
Come to order. We've got a lot of people trying to come in and come on. Just kind of trying to issue seats.
You'll plug that in where that blue cable is on the table. Ask Bruce if he's here.
Okay, before we come back to order, items 1.10 through 1.13 we have to get back to after we finish the timed items that are 10 o'clock items. The first 10 o'clock item is 1.14, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on a request from the Christian Women's Job Corps of Kerr County to use the courthouse grounds on November 20, 2021, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. to sing Christmas carols around the Christmas tree. If there's one negative vote in this room, I'm going to throw you out.
Amen.
You're being contempt of court. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Buck.
Good morning. As you know, we began the Christian Women's Job Corps in 2020, and we have had tremendous support from Kerr County and the Kerrville community. We are getting ready to graduate again another semester, and we were looking at ways to say thank you for your support and to bring a little cheer for Christmas. And actually the date on that is incorrect.
Oh.
We're going to be doing that December the 1st, if it's approved, on Wednesday, December the 1st, from 5:30 to 6:30. It's just an hour. We won't make a mess, but we'll have alumni and board members, teachers, and mentors coming, and probably about 30 people is what I'm anticipating, and we'll just be singing around the Christmas tree, Christmas carols at the corner, and have a sign that says thank you.
Second.
You can come join us to sing if you like.
As long as you don't sing Grandma Got Run Over by.
That won't be one of them.
Okay.
And just to the other members of the public, if there are any other groups that want to sing your own traditional carols or songs of whatever kind, come to us. We're happy to accommodate you. This is something that's good for the community. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 1.15, public hearing. I'm going to convene at this time regarding the district clerk's record archival plan pursuant to the government code. And Ms. Lance couldn't be here. This is routine. We do this every year. So this is a public meeting. Is there anyone who wants to talk about the district clerk's archival plan? There being none, the meeting is adjourned. We'll move on to item 1.16, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve and adopt the district clerk's archival plan for October 1 through December 31.
I move for approval. Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve that. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Next item is also Ms. Lance. Item 1.17 is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve and adopt the district clerk's new civil filing fees to be effective January 1, 2022. Again, this is routine.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve that. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.18. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on November 22nd, 2021 for a revision of plat of the Hill Country Estates Section 2, Tract 1. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. This proposal divides Tract 7, 25.27 acres, into two lots. Tract 7N will be 10.27 acres with frontage on Green Oaks Drive and Indian Mound Road, and Tract 7S will be 15 acres with frontage on Indian Mound Road. County engineer requests the court set a public hearing for 10 a.m. on November 22nd, 2021 for a revision of plat for Hill Country Estates Section 2, Tract 7, Volume 3, page 30, Precinct 3.
Move for approval. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the setting of the public meeting for Hill Country Estates Section 2, Tract 7. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Item 1.19, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to open and receive bids for Ranchero Road Reconstruction Project Phase 1. Read the bids aloud, refer the bids to the county engineer for tabulation, and award the lowest qualified bidder. This is in precincts 1 and 2. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. I believe we have, I don't know, we'll hear from the county clerk. How many bids did we receive on time? two? And then was there one that was not, that was received this morning?
You have to receive one late.
Okay, that one that was received late, do not open it. But the other two can be opened.
Oh, yeah.
And,
And one from J3 Company. And it looks like total for job A is $662,392. And then we have one from Texas Materials. Total for job A is $774,652. I make a motion we accept both bids and refer them to the county engineer for review and recommendation.
Second.
And is making a note for the record also that the Ranchero Road construction from LCR total transport was received late and was not open or accepted.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to receive the two bids at the time of 5. Any discussion?
Judge, I'm questioning the late for the LCR bid. We talked to bid on this 10 o'clock.
I need you to go to the podium.
Oh, excuse me. I'm LC Robbins. I'm questioning the late on the bid. There was a stipulation of before, I thought it was before 10 o'clock this morning. I signed it in before 10 o'clock.
It was published to be received by the clerk on October the 8th.
Oh, well.
by 2 p.m.
Well, I guess my guys missed that. All right, guys.
All right,
Thank you.
all right, sir.
Thank you for your report.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 5-0. Item 1.20, recognition of Trenton Robbins, part-time temporary engineering technician for outstanding work in the engineering and road and bridge department. Charlie Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. Trenton, where are you at? Stand up and be recognized. Trenton Robbins worked in the engineering and road and bridge departments during the summer of 2021 as a temporary part-time engineering technician. During that span, he accomplished much with little to no oversight or instruction. Examples of his work are he learned to use the Geographic Information System software, QGIS, which I might add, I don't know how to use that software. Bobby doesn't know how to use it. It's something new. It's something free that's available to the public. We handed it to him. We said, figure out how to use this and show us if it's a good product. And he developed engineering construction plans using that software. He prepared engineering construction documents, utilized the software to accurately measure construction material quantities. He interacted with the public and solved customer problems. He was instrumental in archival and reorganization of department files. He attended development plan review meetings, assisted with the construction inspection, assisted with development plan review, and other duties as assigned. That's our favorite one right there. He was a catch-all. Trenton was a joy to work with, and he was well accepted by his peers and the public. Trenton graduated from high school this year. He is taking a gap year before college, and he plans to study engineering. Trenton will make a fine engineer. He is detail-oriented, customer-friendly, and considers others as better than himself. So thank you, Trenton. Thank you so much for working. I might add that he visited College Station this weekend and helped beat the hell out of Alabama. Good job, Trenton.
Good weekend to visit.
Maybe a while before they had
It happened.
Can I say that on YouTube?
You just did.
Amen.
Judge, can I speak one more time on the road deal? I just called my office and I'm told we received an addendum that changed the time to today at 10 a.m. turning the bids.
For opening the bids.
For opening the
That's right. Yes, sir. Yes. The time for turning in the bids has always remained October the 8th at 2 p.m. The time for the bid opening was changed from yesterday, Columbus Day, at 10 a.m. to today, 10 a.m.
Okay, that's right.
That was, yeah. Thank you for checking on that.
Thank you.
Sorry. Item 1.21, consider discuss and take appropriate action to report to receive an update on the East Kerr County Centerpoint Wastewater Collection Project, including the budget schedule and progress. Kelly Hayes.
Thank you, Judge. No official action is required on this item. An update on the progress of the East Kerr Centerpoint Wastewater Collection Project will be presented to the court by Don Berger. He is with Tetra Tech Engineering, and they are our consultant on this job. Go ahead, Don.
Thank you very much. I understand we have some new commissioners who may not have heard the last update on this project. It was probably a year ago or so. Actually it's probably closer to 2 years since we actually did a full-blown update. So I do want to walk through the project background just to refresh that in everybody's memory. I won't spend a lot of time on that, but we'll talk about the funding and then the current status of the project, where we are and where we're going. The project was started many years ago because of some malfunctioning septic systems in eastern Kerr County and specifically in the Centerpoint area of Kerr County. And these malfunctioning septic systems pose a serious health hazard to the residents of that community. And because of the proximity to the Guadalupe River, also pose an environmental hazard to the water quality in the Guadalupe River. Unfortunately, many of these septic systems are not easily repaired, and many of the residents who had the failing septic systems could not afford the cost to repair them. And this problem was compounded by the fact that the development in the area was simply too dense for adequate service by an on-site sewage facility or a septic system. And so Kerr County applied to the Water Development Board for funding to help find a solution to the project and additional funding to implement the project. And so there have been several rounds of funding on this project going back to, I think, 2012, if I'm not mistaken. I think was the first EDAP fund that was used to develop a plan to address this issue. The project includes about 27 miles of 6-inch to 15-inch sewer main and 11 lift stations and 6 force mains. The original project was designed to serve approximately 900 new customers, or 900 people that were existing homes, existing businesses, would be hooked onto the system. We're going to get pretty close to that, I think. Not quite, but pretty close.
What was the number again?
900 was the original that was planned for, was about 900. The project will transport the wastewater to the Comfort wastewater treatment plant in Comfort, which is across the county line in Kendall County over there. And so it's owned and operated by the Kendall County WCID number 1. The WCID number 1 has contracted with Kirk County to operate the project, to bill the customers, provide the customer service necessary throughout the project, and provide treatment of the wastewater. In exchange, as part of this project, the wastewater plant was expanded to accommodate the additional capacity, the additional flows that this project would deliver to the plant, so they would have sufficient capacity for that. And about half a mile of gravity sewer had to be replaced in Comfort to accommodate, again, the capacity that was needed for this project. And about 1.3 miles of force main was built in Kendall County to pump to the Comfort collection system so that all the wastewater can get to the treatment facility. The main backbone of the system is a gravity sewer that runs down State Highway 27, beginning at a lift station at the corner of Schlader Lane. And that lift station was installed in phase 1. So it's out there in the field today. You can see that when you drive by on Highway 27. So that main sewer runs all the way up to the intersection with China Street, and the rest of Center Point basically pumps to that sewer. And so there, when we talk about the 11 lift stations, that's 11 different pump stations that pump. The first main one is down at the corner of Schleder. That pumps all the wastewater from the project to Comfort. Then the others help address the issues. When we have all these communities that back up to the river and some of the other creeks, we can gravity flow back towards the river, but eventually we have to pump to get back up to the sewer on the highway. So that's why there are so many pump stations in this project. But the project does serve downtown Center Point, serves areas south of Center Point, off of Verde Creek Road, Elm Pass Road, in that area that backs up to Verde Creek, as well as portions of Center Point just north of 27 behind the mini mart there in downtown Center Point and the Dollar Tree and that area there as well. There is a lift station located on Center Point ISD property and the school district property that they have reserved for a future school site, and it's right across the street from their athletic complex. So when that lift station is built and that sewer is built, if the school wants to hook on to the system, there will be a service stub out for them at that time, and that will also serve any future high school or middle school, whatever they develop on that property that they already own there. It'll be the services available for that as well. The other Center Point ISD facilities have been hooked up to the system in the first phase of construction. So we are providing service to the Center Point School District as well as the residents in that area. The total project cost, our total budget at the moment is about $63 million. The project, about 43% of that was used in phase 1 construction. We have 19% and 14% allocated for phase 2 and phase 3 construction. Other budget categories include basic engineering. The budget is about 5%. Special services, which includes testing, geotechnical work, surveying, and construction inspections, accounts for about 6% of the budget. Administration and other services, which is grant administration, county administration, some of that money actually pays the county for the services of the county engineer for Charlie and his staff to administer the project, and then also land acquisition falls into that category as well. Fiscal Services, this is the bond counsel and financial advisors, loan origination fees, and things like that account for about 2%, and we currently have about 8% in the budget for contingencies. So, and then contingencies, of course, are for those unknown things that may or may not happen. The funding sources include a variety of funds. The Texas Water Development Board is managing the lion's share of the funding. And the Texas Water Development Board has two basic funds that they provide for these types of projects. One is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The Clean Water State Revolving Fund is a fund created under the Clean Water Act that was passed back in the 70s. And that funding was provided, the U.S. Congress provided seed money for that fund so that the states could provide low interest loans to communities for projects just as this. The whole point of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund was to reduce pollution to the waterways as well as promote public health. So that's why a lot of this funding is from there. So we do have some loans under that Clean Water State Revolving Fund plan. In addition, the Water Development Board in the state of Texas offers a loan forgiveness program. So for communities that are low to moderate income and otherwise economically disadvantaged, they can qualify for up to 70% of the loan amount to be forgiven under these CWSRF loans. And so in each of the loan fundings that have been applied for in this, we have maximized that 70% and been a high enough priority project that we were able to get a share of that funds. And in fact, in 1 or 2 years, we got almost all of those funds that were available, because there's a limited amount of that loan forgiveness fund available each year, and only the highest priority projects then are eligible. So this has been a high priority project statewide. The other source of funding is the Economically Distressed Areas Program. We refer to that as the EDAP program. That's what funding was used to get this project started. And so we also have funds under that program for construction and completion of the project, as well as a loan under that program. So I think the important takeaway regarding the funding is that of all of the funding sources, the loan forgiveness, grants from the Texas Department of Agriculture, they make up about 80% of the total financing on the job. So less than 20% of the total budget for this project is through loan funds. So by the county and the residents of that area investing with using these loans, we were able to leverage that to create this big project and make it happen. So I think that's the big takeaway regarding the funding. Currently, the funding budget is about there's approximately $58 million left to be spent, and we have about $48 million of that earmarked for construction. We have about $2 million earmarked for basic engineering, $3 million for special services, a little over $1 million earmarked for administration. Fiscal Services, we've spent a little over $1 million, and then we have $5.4 million in contingencies remaining. Project status as it sits today, we have phase 1 construction is complete, and we have paid that contractor his final payments. That phase 1 construction was completed by Passato Construction. Phase 2 construction, notice to proceed was issued on March 29th. The current contract substantial completion date is June 22nd of 2022. So next summer, the phase 2 should be complete. Phase 3 is a smaller phase than phase 2. It also started on March 29th of this year, and current contract completion date is March 29th of next year. So this project should also be completed by next summer. We have a third contract currently under construction as well for wastewater service connections. This contract is funded by grant funds from the Texas Department of Agriculture. The two funds that we have are Colonia funds. Colonias are communities of low to moderate income within 150 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border. And so we have a number of these communities in this project area that qualify as colonias. So the Colonia Economically Distressed Areas Program, or the CDAP fund, is providing a grant money that allows us to use that money to pay for the connections from the sewer mains to the homes of low to moderate income residents. We also have money from the Colonia Fund for construction as these grants. And so this third contract is being financed through that grant funding to make these connections. So.
One quick point. The TWD, the Clean Water Funds, provide connections on everybody else.
Yes.
So everyone gets connected under our grant, or without any additional cost, as long as everything close enough. The connections are being funded by two different sources. Some of them by the CDAP fund, the Economic Depressed Areas, and everybody else goes under the Water State Revolving Fund.
Yeah. So.
And it was a way for us to maximize dollars.
Yeah, and you know, the TDA funds are grant funds, so they do not have to be paid back. We just have to spend them.
Right.
So,
You
but
mentioned special services earlier.
what
would that entail?
special services is testing, surveying, application costs to prepare the applications for the grants and loans. Construction inspection is being paid as a special service.
Something we would call professional services here at our.
Perhaps, yes. A lot of it is most of it is some type of professional services. There's also categories that fit under that we're not actively using, include things like sewer system modeling and that sort of thing. And so project management funds, some of the funds that we have used under that category have been for developing capacity analyses and things like that. So the capacity analysis that we presented back several months ago, that's financed through the special service. That falls as a special service. But most of that fund is going towards construction inspection. Our in the field inspectors that we have out there every day running that inspection team. We also have prepared operations and maintenance manuals under that fund as well, things like that. The things that are above and beyond basic engineering and sometimes require a special, all of the early on environmental reports and environmental studies that had to be done prior to construction were also under that special services. So. The and as Commissioner Letts indicated, all of the services are financed, so we are able to connect every property that is adjacent to the sewer. We do have the funding to do that one way or another. So the low to moderate income funding residents qualify for funding under the TDA grants, but if they're not low to moderate income, we can still hook them up with Water Development Board funds. So funds from the CWSRF or the EDAP funding is there. We have expended, or we have currently committed funds of approximately $18 million under the construction contracts, the 3 construction contracts I just talked about. We have about $277 million or $277,000 committed for basic engineering, $1.7 million committed for special services, about $700,000 committed for administration. I don't anticipate any future costs for fiscal services because most of those costs are paid at the beginning of the funding when the funding is originally obtained. And we haven't spent and hopefully won't have to spend any money on contingencies, but you know, that always changes. But that total amount of funds subtracted from the funds remaining on the project gives us a balance of around $9 to $10 million in funds that are not currently committed. So we will have some money left over when this project is done. And so we have sufficient funding to complete the project, and we will have some money left over.
What are the requirements of what to do with that money?
Well, we have some choices. We can, some of the money can be used to retire some of the debt service. So that could reduce the cost of the debt service to the customers and to the county residents. Also, some of that funding could be used if there are expansions of the project that where we didn't build a sewer line that we want to consider building a sewer line or that sort of thing, or and actually expand the project somewhat. So those are the considerations primarily that can be used for the funds. My recommendation would be most of that go back into debt service, but there may be a few relatively small projects that we want to consider to expand the project somewhat. And so total to date, we've expended about $30 million. We have a little over $21 million left to spend, and there will be approximately a little less than $10 million that's currently uncommitted. I do expect that we will get into find some contingencies. The funds committed is based upon contract amounts with current construction contracts. However, there are usually change orders, and on this project, a lot of the change orders come from the various unknowns associated with hooking up various residents and that sort of thing. There's always something funny out there that can't be anticipated before we bid the project that will increase those construction contract amounts before they're closed out and done. So, but I don't think we'll get anywhere near using all of that $9 million. So, any questions? Is that hopefully?
I want to make sure that I understand, Don, the 900 families, is that 900 hookups to the?
It's connections, and so they're not all residential connections. For example, the school district is included in that, their facilities. There are some commercial, several commercial entities in Center Point that are connecting to the sewer or have connected to the sewer. And so a good portion of it, the vast majority, are residential connections.
And what capacity have we hooked up to date of those 900?
About 450, 435, about half, yeah. We hooked up a little over 400 in phase one.
And so we have 450 remaining to hook up?
Approximately, yes. So, and that number changes, not daily, but it does change from time to time, because we have new people that come to us and say, hey, I want to hook up, and then we have people that say, well, I wanted to hook up, but I don't want to now, so.
What is the estimate for how many can ultimately be on that system without changing?
It varies significantly depending upon where they are. So in the maps I brought to y'all several months ago, provide some estimates of those capacities available at different locations in the system. And so there's probably another 100 to 200 additional connections that the system has capacity for, about 20% of the total capacity, give or take.
So in other words, if it's before or after pump station A or B or whatever, it'll change that number.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, and it depends, because at the bottom end of the project, right before we pump it to comfort, that's where we have we have a limiting capacity there. But then that sewer that feeds that lift station also has a limited capacity. And then each part, as you branch off, it gets less and less capacity. Some of those have a lot of extra capacity in them within themselves, but then they're limited by some facility further downstream that doesn't have quite as much capacity. So that's what makes it kind of a complex question to answer. And it really depends upon the exact location of where we're talking about in the system.
Where is the final pinch point?
The main pinch point is at the downstream end, the lift station A, and that sewer on State Highway 27. So that would be the sewer on State Highway 27 is a 15-inch sewer. That would be the most expensive element to upgrade should additional capacity be desired. So, because of its length, it's miles and miles long.
Some of the other capacities up until that choke point can be upgraded by lift station capacities. I mean, it can increase the pump size.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's not a black and white answer. It's going to be, yes, you could add 50 homes here, but to do that, you're going to have to increase and put a whole new pump in the lift station.
But the pipes are big enough
parts, and you get to a point, I mean, you have to look at the pumping capacity and then the pipe size. So it's gonna be an ongoing for every,
Right.
you know.
And some
connection. And WCID is the one that looked at it. They look at it and they pretty much know that, they know, they're monitoring the meters at every lift station. They know what's going in and what's going into the plant. And they kind of make the determination really. And they're hooking people up, or I think they are. But we don't even know that really, because it's just the way it's set up. They go and the new home gets built off of there, which there is one. Well, actually, that one wasn't hooked up because it was too deep. But they wanted to go, and that person would have just had to pay a connection.
Yeah.
Of the original plan for 900 hookups, if you had many rejections?
There have been a number of people that have declined not to connect. The Commissioner's Court, early on in the project, prior to the construction beginning, issued a court order that requires those residents or property owners with properties less than an acre.
Or 1 acre or less.
1 acre or less, sorry. That is an important distinction. 1 acre or less to connect to the project. And so those properties are basically required to connect. And I think most of those people have consented and applied. There may be a small handful of holdouts that just said, no, we're not going to do it. And we have a list of those if that's needed. So for enforcement. But most of them have, yes. Yeah,
And
we're
people
getting,
are over.
and we have people over an acre, yeah.
And they're not required, they were not even included in the original.
Right, so many of those folks that are over an acre have also said, hey, yes, we want to be on sewer service, we don't want to have to maintain this whole septic system anymore, or aerobic system, or whatever they have. So.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Berger?
Just, I think one more comment is really more perfect. There is a distance, we pay for a certain footage to connect, how much is it, Charlie?
200?
200. The first 200 feet is covered. If someone lives 250 feet, their home from the zero line, they have to pay that 50-foot incremental cost. And that's usually what starts, where people start backing off because it starts costing too much to connect.
Anything else?
No, that was good.
Well, thanks, Don. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to do this important work for the county.
Okay, that takes us to item 1.22, which is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to the court to authorize the county judge to execute amendment number 12 to the professional services agreement between Kerr County and Tetra Tech in the amount of $1,196,469, funded under the TWDB, that's the Texas Water Development Board, project number 10366, for additional services related to design, construction, and inspection of the East Kerr County Center Point Wastewater Collection Project. Mr. Hastings.
Thank you, Judge. The final phases of construction of the East Kerr Center Point Wastewater Collection Project are underway. There have been several changes to the design and revisions to accommodate easement acquisition and other project obstacles. In addition, services are required to assist county staff in coordinating the connection of future developments to the wastewater collection system. Tetra Tech prepared maps of the project showing available capacity information and proposes to aid with the adoption of a county policy that addresses future connection of development to the system. The project construction is being inspected by CEC under contract with Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech proposes to expand the inspection services to include resident project representation through CEC to provide better coordination and field representation of the design team. This has been working well since construction began and will provide better quality assurance for the project construction. In addition, this type of oversight will help to reduce change orders and provide better communication and coordination between all parties involved. We do have a scope of services and the price for the proposal. There's more details in your packet, but as the judge mentioned, what we're asking the court to do is to award professional services agreement. This is amendment number 12 between Kirk County and Tetra Tech. It's in the amount of $1,196,469, and it's funded under the Texas Water Development Board project number 10366 for additional services related to design, construction, and inspection of the East Kerr Centerpoint Wastewater project. Those particular funds are the CWSRF Loan Fund L10000484, CWSRF Loan Forgiveness Fund LF10000748, and EDAP Grant Fund G10000904. There are sufficient funds remaining for this service.
Hey, in summary, just two big parts of this, and correct me if I'm not accurate on Don and Charlie. One is we're increasing CEC, which has the inspected services. We're increasing their involvement. We found in the first phase that we were short on funds there. There was actually an amendment done at that point to help that, but that's, and the other large part of this is just the Mosby Lane part of that 16A and B, and that rerouting.
Yes.
The other large part of this is there's near Birdie Creek, off Elm Pass, we had to reroute that whole area due to failure to be able to get some easements that we needed. So a lot of this work is really, that's already all been done, and they just couldn't bill it, and we didn't do it until we had the contract going, and the other parts for initial engineering, and that takes up the most of this.
The lion's share of it is for the construction inspection.
I was waiting for that when you were enumerating all the expenditures. How much of it was easement costs?
The easement costs
Is it incidental to that amount?
Yes.
Yeah, the total easement cost on the project, I think, the actual cost for the land was not all that much. It was like $150,000 or something like that.
Something like that.
I think
That's 70.
I think more money was spent on the real estate folks that helped us acquire those easements and did all the negotiations and all of that. So
What heading is that under?
that's under administration. So, yeah, administration is.
I'm sorry. I moved for the agenda, the approval of change order 12 in the amount of $1,196,469.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 5-0.
Thank you very
Move
much.
on to item 1.23. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to authorize county judge to execute a contract with Hewitt Engineering in the amount of $99,080 for engineering services related to Coldwell Lane at State Highway 27 and Willow Bend Drive at Highway 27 drainage projects.
Thank you, Judge. Stormwater drainage along State Highway 27 and Center Point areas backs up onto State Highway 27 during large storm events at multiple locations. These locations were analyzed by TxDOT and their engineers during a recent expansion / upgrade of the State Highway 27 road facility. And TxDOT enlarged various highway culverts to accommodate the larger stormwater conveyance under their highway as a result. The next step is to convey said stormwater from the highway culverts to the Guadalupe River. The attached contract with Hewitt Engineering, Inc. is for the drainage issues at both Coldwell Lane at State Highway 27 and Willow Bend Drive at State Highway 27, and has a scope of services which includes the following tasks: data collection and local agency meetings, determine hydrology and peak flows for different frequency storms, determine culvert and channel hydraulics, prepare preliminary engineering report with alternatives and recommendations, and prepare final construction plans, field surveying, and estimate project costs. This project has also been identified in the Region 11 Guadalupe Region Flood Plan as engineering funded and underway, and needing construction funding should Region 11 select said project for possible grants. The county engineer recommends that the court authorize the county judge to execute a contract with Hewitt Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $99,080 for engineering services related to the Coldwell Lane at State Highway 27 and Willow Bend Drive at State Highway 27 drainage projects, Precinct 2 and John Hewitt is here if you have any questions.
We've got another one after this. These are the drainage projects that we need to do out there past the airport.
Yes, sir.
That Commissioner Moser, your predecessor.
Look at the Charlie.
So,
I move to approve.
I'll second.
got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a little bit of discussion on the Region 11, just to explain that a little bit. It's similar to Region 11 floodplain group's gonna prioritize these and we have to be listed in there to get state funding. They won't be providing the funding. The funding will be through a grant that we have to submit to the Water Development Board probably to them. It could be through somebody else, FEMA possibly too. But we have to get, this is basically, we have to know what we need to do. And this is a feasibility study to figure out how we then accomplish it. Then we can go forward with the grant to actually do the project.
And this, Commissioner Moser did have this included in the budget.
Yes. Minimum, I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion.
Is the baseline of this, John, going to be the floodplain studies, or is this all brand new stuff?
No, it's different from the floodplain study. It'll be the crossings, these crossings. So it's not really in the floodplain per se. It's the crossings and how much water's getting there and how we're going to get it out of that intersection and back to the river.
Yeah, this is basically to get the normal flow of water that hits that area handled, so that we can still use the roads.
It's about
highways.
27.
Well, I get that, but you have to have a starting point. You don't know how much volume of water is going to go on any given rain. So I don't know what the starting point is on something like that from an engineering standpoint.
So we'll look at different storms, and we call them different frequency storms. So we'll look and see in a 2-year event, something that theoretically will happen on average every 2 years. Does that go over the top of the road? Then we look at the 5, the 10, the 25, and the 50. And the floodplain is based on a 100-year storm, and we don't know nowhere close to that on these crossings.
So we've got a motion and a second. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Let's move on to the next one, which is item 1.24. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to authorize the county judge to execute a contract with Hewitt Engineering in the amount of $24,925.70 for engineering services related to Sutherland Lane at State Highway 27 drainage projects. Charlie Hastings.
The attached contract with Hewitt Engineering, Inc. is specifically for the drainage issues at Sutherland Lane in State Highway 27 and has a scope of services which includes the following tasks: data collection and local agency meetings, determine hydrology and peak flows for different frequency storms, determine culvert and channel hydraulics, prepare preliminary engineering report with alternatives and recommendations, prepare final construction plans, and the project estimated costs. This project has also been identified in the Region 11 Guadalupe Region Flood Plan as engineering funded and underway, and needing construction funding should Region 11 select said project for possible grants. County engineer recommends that the court authorize the county judge to execute a contract with Hewitt Engineering in the amount of $24,925.70 for engineering services related to the Sutherland Lane at State Highway 27 Drainage Project, Precinct 2.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve contract with Hewitt Engineering for the Sutherland Lane at State Highway 27 drainage project. Discussion?
Question. My recollection is that, and John may know this, that drainage through there was changed at one point by previous owner. And there used to be a winding creek kind of from where that culvert is in Sutherland Lane to the river, and then it was straightened out and went right through that field, versus now where they quarried it, now there's a big depression. Is it part of the study that's to dump this water into that big hole?
Yeah, that's what that's an alternative we're gonna look at. But you're right, I think that area has been modified.
Okay. But that is an option to dump it in the big hole.
Yeah.
If they want it.
The de facto detention pond?
Yeah.
The hole is there.
The hole's there.
Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Like hole in your hand.
Moving on to item 1.25, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to approve a revision of plat for Spicer Ranch Road number 3, lot 16. Charlie Hastings.
This proposal divides Lot 16W3R, 8.99 acres, into 2 lots. Lot 16W3-R1 will be 5.15 acres fronting on Highway 16, and Lot 16W3-R2 will be 3.69 acres fronting on Mark Drive. We held a public hearing on this on September the 27th. Just the final plat just wasn't quite ready for signatures at that time. So we're bringing it to you now. County engineer requests the court approve a revision of plat for Spicer Ranch 3, lot 16W3R, plat file number 17-02753, precinct 1.
I move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the revision of plat for Spicer Ranch Road number 3, lot 16W3-R. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.26, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the court to approve the final plat for Skyline Subdivision Precinct 2. Charlie Hastings.
On March 23rd, 2021, a notice of violation of the Kerr County Flood Damage Prevention Order was issued for this property. There was regrading of the property with a bulldozer without a floodplain development permit or a no-rise certificate. On April the 9th, 2021, an incomplete floodplain development permit application was received, and on August the 6th, 2021, a floodplain development permit was issued pursuant to meeting the requirements of the Flood Damage Prevention Court Order. On August the 6th, 2021, a plat application was received for this subdivision that proposes 2 lots fronting Skyline Road in Centerpoint. Lot 1 will be 5.01 acres, and Lot 2 will be 9.06 acres. Said Lot 2 was found to be sold and conveyed on June 29th, 2021, in violation of Section 6.00 of the Kerr County Subdivision Regulations, which states, no sale of lots in any subdivision shall begin until the court has approved the final plat, and subdivision plat has been filed with the county clerk, Kerr County, Texas. Both lots lie next to the Guadalupe River and are completely within the regulatory floodway. Any proposed improvements require a floodplain development permit and must meet requirements for development within the floodplain as noted on the plat. There is a specific note that states what I just said. And if you look at that plat, you'll see there's shading. That is to make it very, very clear to whoever buys these lots or owns these lots that if they're going to try to develop it, you're not just in the floodplain, you're in the floodway. And I just have real concerns that someone would ever be able to do anything with these lots. But they do have a plat before you, and I'm asking the court to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on the final plat for Skyline Subdivision. It is Precinct 2. It does meet our floodplain development regulations. The plat does, because it has notes that makes it clear to everyone you're in the middle of a bad situation if we're in a storm. And I'm reminded of what happened recently in Junction with, I think it was an RV park. And I think there are some RVs and trucks that are still buried in the ground. So I just don't want to see that happen here or anywhere. I realize that we're a river community, and if you live anywhere near the river, you're going to see a flood one day. And it's going to be bigger than the floodplain maps. The floodplain is just to establish insurance. Okay, that's what it's there for. It's also to let us know this is a special flood hazard area, and we need to take caution. We need to, it's okay to dream big, but you also need to look at your history books and look at the pictures and see what that river does. And when it comes through, it's relentless. So we need to proceed with caution, and that's what I recommend. But does it meet our plating regulations, the plat that's in front of you? Yes, it does.
No, I brought it up a meeting or two back, whether the county should have some kind of policy about people understanding what they're getting, rather than just the buyer beware. Have a better understanding or a way to understand that, especially for somebody who moved here and not used to this, our kind of terrain with the river and the flood. We don't have anything like that, so.
Well, I lobby if it puts people on notice to know that is floodway.
But there's a lot of that sort of thing where people could be flooded. That's in a floodway, which is different. But there's possibilities in a lot of places, and it's basically a buyer beware attitude here.
And
we don't have a policy.
Well, I like the fact that Charlie did it. But that's not the problem with this application.
I know. But doing it on under special circumstances, hit and miss, piecemeal.
I kind of see it as two issues here. One is the plat, and Troy's saying it fits our standards. But the other part is what we do about someone who violated our laws about the filing part. They did make it right later, but
Well, first of all, they violated the rules by changing the floodway without permit. Right, Charlie?
Yes, sir.
And they got cited for that.
Yes.
And they got a cease and desist order.
Yes, sir.
And then they went out and hired the engineer to go fix what they had done. And we've got that under control now.
Correct.
But in the meantime, before they came to us to request approval for this plat provision, they sold part of the property as though it was a separate lot when it had not been platted, and violated our rules on that. And my question in my mind was this inadvertent or was this intentional? And to me, it looks like it was an intentional act for them to sell the property, knowing the requirements of what they were going to have to do to get the plat approved. That bothers me. That is a flagrant act of disobedience. And I believe that is also a crime. A Class B misdemeanor.
Yes,
Well, then there's a fee that goes with that.
yes, but it's also punishable by jail time.
And or.
That's not often what happens, but.
I mean,
Is it a fee and or jail time?
And it's up to, I think it's up to 180 days in jail.
Well, I'm not near as interested in how much time they spend in jail, as what kind of fine should they pay us for what they did.
And I think, the two issues that I agree with you, Judge, on the planning issue, and I think that our rules are very clear, the state law is very clear, that they're in violation of the Class C misdemeanor. And I think we should probably pursue that. The other issue about the other violation they did, floodplain, they've handled that part of it, and that's not part of the planning process, which is really, I mean, so to me, and I don't know about that for the county attorney, if it was done improperly, does it still get approved? Or, hey, what's the process of, I mean, I think these people ought to be, and we ought to probably, anyone that does this, not just these people, but anyone that knowingly violates our rules, we should refer to your office for prosecution. And then you have to look at the facts, I guess.
And the prosecutor will look at the facts,
Right.
like it does any other criminal violation. And I think it's a B, it's not just a citation, it's a.
But I think refer it to
Yeah.
you, but the question is, I think we should do that, A. And B, does it still get approved under the new state law after 30 days?
I talked to Charlie about this morning, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to have these two lots out there. We are identifying that they are in the floodway. We're providing additional notice that we're not required to provide, but I think it's wise that we do it. But there's just going to be lots on the ground. And if we don't approve it, I don't know what happens to those. Those are going to be lots out there. But they can't just do this with impunity. They can't just thumb their nose at our rules. They were violating the requirements. They were cited. They corrected it. I agree. That's not part of what we're doing here today. but they were already bad players. And then they played badly again. And that's what bothers me. You know, first time, shame on you.
So I guess, I mean,
But what your
I think we
question
approved
is
the plan.
whether or not
We
the
approved
plat
it
can be
and then-
approved by operation of law if y'all
so-
don't even take action today.
we approve it and refer it to the county attorney, is that how we do it?
That would be my motion. In fact, I move that we approve the plat and refer the matter to the county attorney's office to investigate the
Once
infraction.
it's approved, it must be recorded in the county clerk's office, so just, there's also that. I
Right.
don't think we have a delay in that,
No.
No,
so.
I mean, it is what
Okay,
it
so
is.
the 30-day rule,
It's done.
how does the 30-day rule enter into this?
Once a plat, I'll go ahead and answer it.
Thank you.
Once a plat has been submitted that meets our regulations, 30 days from that date, the court must either approve with conditions, or deny.
With the
So
specific
would this one
reasons.
have qualified?
And
Or
if you
is it
deny, you have
disqualified?
to, and if you deny, you have to cite specifically why that plat doesn't meet the regulations. And it meets our regulations, so.
And then the other option, and this is something for us to consider, is to not act, because then it's approved by operation of law,
It
correct?
would be approved by operation of law.
Maybe that's what we ought to do, so that there's always going to be a little blemish on this transaction because of the way they did it. Just let it be approved by operation of law.
Then it's not recorded necessarily.
It'll still,
We have to record
it still has to be recorded.
It should be recorded. After 30 days, after
They have to come to us and ask us to be recorded, I think. Don't they, Charlie?
I believe all they've got to do is go to the clerk and say, we understand the court didn't take any action, it's been 30 days, please file this.
Well, I don't want to put any additional headaches or requirements on the clerk. Our clerk's innocent.
But have you dealt with anything like that, Jackie?
I think it becomes an unofficial plat or something. There's terms we use in the office as an unofficial subdivision plat, and it goes in a drawer.
But since all this happened, that 30-day policy, you haven't had any of them just
We haven't
go
done-
through? We haven't done anything like that, so this would be new territory.
Well, it is what it is, and the future, whoever wants to buy this property in the future knows that it's in the floodway. And whatever this problem is, to be dealt with at this time by this applicant. I see no reason to punish future purchasers of property.
But
Judge,
we
I would-
make sure it gets filed, because we want the public to be on notice that it's in the flood.
Yeah. So I think my motion was that we go ahead and approve the plat because it meets the requirements and refer the matter to the county attorney's office.
And know that we don't have an investigator in the office to investigate the crime, so it'll need to be submitted to us for review for prosecution.
Do you send us a letter to the,
Charlie usually sends a letter, their department sends a letter out, the notice of violation, what they did here. You done it wrong, and then usually people in our community generally are gonna comply with whatever they need to comply with when it comes to violations like this.
does that go with some kind of fee schedule or something?
Well, if a Class B misdemeanor actually ends up being filed, then it becomes a criminal case. So all of the criminal fees and fines come with it. It's outside of any kind of fine that would be imposed on the civil side. It becomes a criminal case, just like a possession of marijuana or DWI or.
So it'd be incumbent on your office to prove they willingly and willfully did this,
We would have to prove a
that they were
mental
full
state.
of knowledge they were doing something wrong.
Well, it's the law, it's like speeding.
Well, ignorance of the law is one thing, but what you said earlier, Judge, is that they knew not to do it and did. And you can do it and be, you don't know that the speed limit is
Here's what
10 miles an hour, you do 50 and you're still in trouble, so that's what I'm asking.
But so that everybody's clear about what happened. They went out there and started changing the floodway without having proper permit. Charlie sent them a letter telling them they were in violation.
We basically an accident, he saw it.
Yes. And so that put them on our radar screen. The remediation for that violation included retaining one of our local civil engineers, John Hewitt, that we just put under contract on these other matters. And so he came out, he knows what the rules are. They also involved with this planning process, Lee Vogel, one of our local surveyors, county surveyors, as a matter of fact, who knows that this was not in compliance with our rules. I want my engineers and surveyors out there to help these applicants comply with what they know our rules are. This sets a dangerous precedent that, well, we don't have to do that anymore. The Commissioner's Court will just rubber stamp, you can do what you want to out there and they can get away with it. I don't like that precedent. We need to enforce our rules to the extent that we can. I'm not trying to be overly punitive, I'm just trying to say, you violated the law, you have to answer for it. You shouldn't have done it that way. You're working with an engineer that knew the rules. And if we had John in here, I don't want to put him on the spot, I'll bet you he told them what the rules were.
Well, I can guarantee you the county surveyor.
Yeah. So, here we are. Why we have to deal with, I've got the county surveyor involved, I got one of the best engineers in town involved, and we're having to deal with somebody that just thumbs their nose at us. I'm sorry, I got the jaw to join on this one.
I'll second your motion, Judge, and then we can refer to the county attorney, and I hope the county attorney, ask, Charlotte to do whatever research is needed in that, so that we can.
We'll offer Charlie and Bobby help.
We did, that's what the packet is. So it's all there. The only thing that we have not done is issue a notice of violation that they sold the lot. We're bringing it right here in front of the public to expose it because it was part of our process, our due diligence of putting this packet together. That's what we do. So it fleshes itself out when people turn things in.
So we've got a motion to approve the plat as presented because it meets our requirements, with a referral to the county attorney's office and instruction to the county engineer to send a notice of violation so that we can have some accountability to this infraction. Any other discussion?
That work?
Well, I have a question. Have we shaded this too much, discussing it like this? It sounds like we've already got somebody guilty of something and hasn't gone to any kind of a court trial.
Well, we think he's guilty, but it's up to the court.
I understand that, but we've just told.
We've got prosecutorial discretion to decide what to do, number two, and my guess is this is probably going to be worked out by some sort of agreement, as most things like this are.
We don't want you.
But I don't want to let it go yet. That's what I'm saying. I'm giving it to her because I don't want to let it go yet.
The prosecutor will review it like it does every other criminal case that's submitted to our office.
And then ultimately, it's up to a judge or a jury to make the decision on,
Sure.
If they don't get it worked out with the county, then they have to go through the entire process.
Okay. We'll make sure that we never used words like alleged or anything like that. So.
Well, it's a matter of fact. It's internal.
Even so, not proven in court of law.
Okay. So, any more discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay. Interesting morning.
We have to go back on something?
No, I think we're good.
No, we didn't. 110.
Oh, yeah, those.
10, 11, 12, 13.
Right.
They're pretty quick.
1.10, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the county clerk's fee schedule and reporting it as it relates to planning requirements. This is to address the interim period until the subdivision rules are officially adopted. Ms. Dowd.
Commissioner Lutz can take it.
This came up because Jackie called me because somebody wanted to file a preliminary plat of record, and she says, "What do?"
We don't do it anymore.
We don't have preliminary plats anymore. So I said we need to put this on the agenda. And our recommendation is that we modify her fee schedule. That there's only everything except the final plat fee schedule is deleted.
That makes sense.
So we get rid of all anything to do with concept plan or preliminary plats related to the fee schedule.
Is that a motion?
Well, are we losing money by, we need to
Yes, sir.
elevate the fee a little bit for the final.
I think we can wait a couple of months, it's not gonna.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm
I think,
talking about-
yeah, I think we need to look at our fee schedule based on this now, because it's gonna put us in a much quicker, time
Yeah.
crunch, other thing.
Or do we,
Yeah.
one idea would be just call it whatever the fees that are charged for the preliminary plan. Eliminate that, but call that a pre-final file. If they want, bring one to us and give it to us, they don't have to pay for it.
You should get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So to say they're not getting this and this and this, but we're gonna charge them more for this, I don't like
The
that.
problem I have with anything preliminary or pre-final is that from advice of our outside counsel and inside counsel, anything we do to approve something before the final plat may set
Yeah.
that we're approving something before we really want to approve it.
I agree with that.
Well, one of the things, and this may be aside from that, but that I've considered looking at this, and that is with the encumbrance on our staff to jump to the rears to comply in that period of time, I think those final plat fees need to reflect that so that our budget doesn't get screwed up by it.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with
I agree.
that.
And we need to look at, at all of our subdivision fees, which also is environmental health, need to be looked at, because I was looking at them today as well, and they're pretty low.
They are low, but we shouldn't just up them because we dropped something else.
Right, but those are intended to be user fees, and they should pay what it's actually costing us to do those.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
But I make a motion that we delete the preliminary plat fees from our fee schedule.
I'll second
Got a motion and a second, any discussion?
I see, almost.
Well, I just have a question, because this brings up a question for y'all that I think this now is a good time that they need to address it, that people are asking, well, what happens in the meantime until you adopt your new rules? Will you even consider preliminary plats or concept plans in the same way that you have before? I think that local folks are asking and would like an answer, and this sounds like the answer is no.
The answer is no, I think.
The answer is no, but it'll still go the way it has. You go to the engineer's office, you sit down and you talk with the people, their commissioner. So everybody knows what's going on, that's all.
Well, the only comment I would make is, we eliminate these preliminary plat approval fees. And I know we no longer have an official preliminary plat process that we're required to accommodate. But I do want to encourage the developers to bring these matters to our engineer.
Sure.
Well in advance of submitting a final application, to give all of us more lead time, to make sure we know where we are with this. So, I mean, I want to encourage them to do some kind of pre-final discussion with Charlie and presentation. We're not going to take any action, that's what we're clarifying. We're not going to approve a concept plan, we're not going to approve a preliminary plat plan. There's not going to be any fees if they want to submit them, but we encourage them to still work with their engineering department in that regard.
And the commissioner of that precinct.
And the commissioner of that precinct.
Right. The process is still there, and the commissioner and Charlie can bring them to the court if needed for a discussion, but we're not going to take any action.
Right. Charlie's gonna always tell us if the driveway clearance is not enough, if they need different drainage, and all that's gonna come up anyway.
We just need to be careful that we don't get too involved. We just listen and receive information more than
it's discussion over
the past.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
You guys aren't gonna be able to operate without the whiz kid now, right? Your office is gonna be okay.
We're already struggling.
I know you can barely run a cell phone, but you need a young guy in there again, or young gal.
Going back to flip phones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amended motion, did you second it, Beth?
I did.
You did, Harley did.
We've got a motion in the second to eliminate the preliminary plat fees from the county clerk office. Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Judge, we can skip item 11 because they don't have to change their plat fees.
Okay, and then we'll go to item 1.12, consider discuss and take appropriate action to approve the contract with Documation and to authorize the equipment removal and buyout of UDO contract number 500-0522756-000. Sheriff.
Yes.
Yes, Judge and Court. What I've been doing is having Sonia pull contracts as they get close. A lot of vendors out there are hungry, trying to make sure we get the best bang for a buck. But on this one, it wasn't the numbers that got me, it was the service. Our current company, UBO, their service tech, Elizabeth Bandera, has left and went to another company. It just happens to be the new one I want to go to. But and it's told us that it's up to 3 days on service. They're out of Austin, which was not acceptable to me. So I had documentation give us some numbers. And what I wanted to run by y'all, they're willing to buy out our old contract. And of course add a little bit to our current one, but I'll give you those numbers here in a minute. With the current company, we get 11,000 black and white copies a month, 0 color. With a new company, we get 18,000 with 700 color copies, and I'll give you those numbers where it'll make a little more sense in a minute. But with the new contract, they would replace our copier in our workroom. We have 2 contracts with this company. The other one's just not good timing. We need to wait about 6 months. It wouldn't be cost effective to change. But with the current one, we have a copier in our workroom, warrants, and dispatch. And I'm also asking for a 4th copy for our patrol room, where about 24 deputies work out of that room. And I kind of wonder, since I've been in there, they walk to the other side of the building all day and all night, which, you know, I never really got an answer why there's not a copy in there, but I want to put one in there. But anyway, with this all being said, at the end of the day, the cost, our current contract runs $869.07 a month. The new one would be $942.50 a month, which is what, about $73.43 change. But like I said, we don't get any color copiers, so we average $140 to $150 a month in overage consistently. Right. So at the end of the day, it's a $50 to $75 savings adding a copier, updating our current copiers, where I don't get into all this, but from 40 pages per minute, they'll be doing 53, whatever. But anyway, so I mean, overall, I think it's a real good deal. We have sent it to Heather. She had one request change. We've changed that, and I'm just coming to y'all today to get that approved.
I move for approval. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the buyout of UBO contract and contracting with documentation from the Sheriff's Office. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank y'all.
Item 1.13, consider, discuss, take appropriate action on procedure for hiring a grant administrator and review/revise job description. Mr. Letts.
I just put on the agenda so we can keep this moving. As of Friday, we only had 1 application.
It's a pretty low bar too.
But either way, we still need to review that one candidate and see if it's acceptable or not. I know that the auditor's office is anxious for us to move forward. So, put it out there. I figured that the, committee, I know the judge has expressed interest for it being on the committee. He had mentioned, Rose Lavender may want to assist with this.
Rose has volunteered to help us with that.
Help on the executive, yeah, that's fine. And probably Joe. I think those 3 on the review committee, and then we're going to come back with a recommendation report.
Well, do we have a deadline for when we need this filled?
ASAP.
Yeah.
I know we said that, but I mean, is there something backing up or waiting on?
Yes. We need a contact person with grant works.
Right.
That's what's holding us up right now. They're going to do all the administration, but they need to know who to talk to here at the courthouse.
Okay, but
and keep the balls rolling.
But my point is, we've lived without that up till now. Do we really keep looking for candidates? We've only got one
It'd be nice
person.
to have some more.
It'd be nice to have some choices.
I agree with you.
Everybody agrees. I mean, I
don't know what to do to beat this up. Now, what we could do is make this a little more visible instead of people. I mean, put it on.
I think
should put it at least put it on Facebook and all.
I think so. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know what else we can do.
I'm not sure about Facebook, but I think that, maybe we give it another week and then start interviewing.
I would think you'd want more than one candidate.
Exactly.
Well, I agree with that, but in terms of the hiring, I want to include Jody in that process.
Of course.
Because
that's right.
I reached out.
Important to Joe.
We reached out to Jody to supervise this person, so that you know.
And as we all know, Jody's more important than he is.
Absolutely.
So And he'll be the first.
I agree with that.
I'm gonna do what she tells me anyway.
Okay, yeah, well, certainly. Jody, does that make sense?
Without a doubt.
I think so.
Okay,
She's gonna be a direct supervisor, she needs to say,
Yeah.
is this somebody that you can work with or not?
Bingo.
Okay.
Well, it's not the kind of job, I mean, it's the kind of job that is rather specialized, so I wouldn't expect a horde of people applying for it, but still, you might think that there'd be more than one.
And the other thing you maybe, you know, is to reach out to City of San Antonio, which I presume has a grant writing department.
Yeah.
Reach out to City of Austin. Maybe not. Maybe let's go to St. John.
Yeah. Well, not a lot of difference there.
Well, that
Reach-
could
reach-
be in
reach
the
out.
form of a, you're talking about a letter, press release, or what? We could send a press release to those places.
I'd almost, you know,
Find a good one and steal them.
Yeah. What's Medina County have been?
Well,
You take that up, that you are.
would there be, here's a way I think, you know, when somebody retires from something or they work somewhere and they leave, then they become a consultant. So a grant worker might know somebody that could fill the job too. They have contacted all kinds of people.
Don
And they know
might
the good
somebody.
ones and the good ones and the not so good ones.
Well, why don't we extend the opening for another 2 weeks, and reach out and see if we can get more traction, more interest in the job. And meanwhile, we'll plan on putting together the faculty committee that includes the HR director Jennifer, our court coordinator Jody, myself, and who's the name?
Rose.
Rosa, and Rosa's our consultant.
Okay. I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
We got a motion and a second, any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand.
I don't hear my name, I holler, go quick.
Okay. I think that concludes our consideration agenda. We'll move on to the approval agenda. 2.1 is to pay the bills.
Invoices for today's consideration, $639,856.62.
I move that we pay the bill.
Second. A motion been made to pay the bills and seconded to pay the bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. We don't have a quorum. We need to vote. Okay, it's unanimous. 2.2, budget amendments.
There are not any.
2.3, late bills.
There are not any.
2.4, auditor report.
Yes, the auditor's office conducted 2 internal audits for the Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1 and Precinct 2, and we ask that you accept the reports.
I move that we accept the report.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the auditor reports as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 2.5, monthly reports.
Yes, for August 2021, amended report from JP4, Bill Ragsdale. Animal Control Services, Reagan Gibbons. For September 2021, payroll approval report, County Treasurer Tracy Sullivan. Auditor's report, Tanya Shelton. Constable monthly report, Constable 1, Tommy Rodriguez. Constable 2, Kyle Snyder. Constable 3, Paul Gonzalez. Constable 4, Brad Ryder. Fines, judgments, and jury fees collected, JP1, Mitzi French. JP2, J.R. Hong. JP3, Kathy Mitchell. JP4, Bill Ragsdale. District Clerk, Dawn Lance. County Clerk, Jackie J.D. Dowdy. And Environmental Health, OSSF Director, Ashley Batters. I move for approval.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to approve the reports as presented. Any discussion? In favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. 2.6, court order.
Court orders from the meetings I missed last week, court orders, October 6th. The 38984 through 38986. And then the ones from our September 27th meeting is 38957 through 38983. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the court orders as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous. Okay, that concludes the approval agenda. Let's move on to the information agenda. Do we have any department heads for the status report? Moving on, do we have any elected officials for the status report? Kerr.
Yeah, real quick, when I spoke to y'all last time, I think we'd had 4 human smuggling events, 2 in Kirk County, 1 in Kimball, and 1 in Kendall. The last 2 weeks, we've averaged 1 smuggling case a week. Both incidents we arrested, we took in custody 9 illegals. The first one, we put 1 person in jail for human smuggling, and last week we put 2 individuals. Currently, I'm supposed to be at a meeting in San Antonio where all the sheriffs meet about once a month. I have 2 guys there, but like I said, we'll just continue to think things are going to be picking up for us. We'll keep you posted.
Okay. Any other elected officials? Okay, 3.3, liaison commission. Report.
The report is, I've mentioned a couple times about that Lone Star program.
Operation Lone Star.
Operation Lone Star. Visited with John Bull last week and his communication with Keith Williams. They decided that we don't want to participate. So they're not going to bring that forward to the Oversight Committee, I don't believe, at least at this time. It was, seemed like a lot of work for not much gain, and nothing to do right now. So at the present time, no plan for that.
I got one from the historical, there's going to be a historical marker dedication at Glen Rest Cemetery on the 13th at 10 a.m. That's this Saturday, State Day 2017. Everybody's invited.
Anything to report? I got a couple to report. One is the CIP committee, our Capital Improvement Planning Committee. They're in the process of a 6-month awareness program. They make the public aware of what our capital needs are. The month of October is for the courthouse and courthouse security. Fred Henneke is heading that up. You can expect him to be here probably at our last meeting of the month, to bring us on how that's going and make the court generally aware of what these needs are. Good, so that's the report. The other thing I reported is last week we had our very first Kerr County APO Advisory Council meeting. Went very well. We had probably 12.5 people there. It was well attended, well received. And, so
And the APO is?
the aggregate production operators.
Less people forget.
Well, but, and the way we're running that meeting is I actually preside somewhat like I do here, that I don't let one side cross-examine the other side. I have questions directed to the bench, and then I will, if you have a citizen out there asking questions, they come to Jill and I, and then we hand those questions off to the operators and kind of intercede so that we don't get the finger pointing and the name calling and dramatics. And everybody has behaved beautifully. We're all good. Anything else to report?
Judge, just for clarification, I think that marker is November 13th, not October.
Did I say October?
Yeah.
Yes. I said this Saturday.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Thank you, Joe. It's November 13th. Because this Saturday is the 11th.
Okay, we have one item to take up in executive session involving our juvenile detention facility. That is, we have inquiries and potential offers that are being made to lease that facility that we want to bring to the court's attention. We'll take that matter up in executive session. Meanwhile, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and when we reconvene, we'll be in executive session, which shouldn't take very long. no action to be taken. So Commissioners Court is adjourned.